Hey, so I want to talk about how some people think that being alone is something that needs to be fixed. But in my opinion, the way you are is not something that needs to be fixed. You're just unsubmissive to the narrative that people need to feel okay, the narrative that people lie to themselves about. You're too honest with yourself. And that's what people can't comprehend. You've been through so much, too much in life. And you tried and tried and tried and tried and tried things and realized the reality. You've been through isolation and you had to sit in that isolation. And during that isolation, you were forced to observe life instead of play roles. And those roles are the roles that society are built on. And from that observation of you being in isolation, you are now starting to see clearly. And that's what they call waking up. That's what they call an ego death. And when you're at that point, you literally can't unsee stuff. You cannot just unsee certain things. Your perception of the world is forever changed. You're maturing. Your consciousness is opening up. You're becoming more aware. So now some interactions and relationships with people are going to seem more shallow, more lonelier. And you're going to have to, unfortunately, throw some relationships with people away entirely because they're not going to feel right to you. They're not going to feel right with your conscience. They're not going to feel right with your morals. Interacting with certain people is just not going to feel right to you. The way you speak and the way they speak, the way you see and the way they see are going to start to change because when you step outside of the matrix, you're gonna see the movie and you can't talk to people, you can't talk to people outside the movie that's still in the movie. Like nothing that you can say is really gonna hit home for them, is really gonna make sense because they're still in the movie. You're gonna see how language is all backwards when you step outside the matrix. When you step outside the movie, you're gonna see how language is like a spell and how many people around you are indoctrinated, and how language is the biggest form of control, and how it's just too conditioned in people, and you can't change the world, you can't change their worldview. So you're going to have to protect your sanity and your peace by cutting some people off. Constant trauma sheds your ego, and during an ego death, you can't interact with just anybody. You won't be able to just tolerate the same things that you used to. Everything is going to become very, very, very intentional to you. You're going to naturally be preserving your energy, but everybody else that's still under the spell won't be able to understand you, even if they probably want to. They just won't be able to understand what you be saying. Like it's gonna seem like you're speaking Spanish to a lot of people. They won't understand that you need solitude, privacy, and independence to function. They'll see you as being avoidant, like there's something wrong with you, but in reality nothing is wrong with you. Everybody was just taught that being around people all the time and talking to people all the time is healthy, because changing their view of the world would cause them to realize that a lot of things that they do A lot of things that they say, a lot of ways that they act are coping mechanisms so they can feel okay. And, a lot of stuff is just for them to cope. Like a lot of behavior that they, do is just a coping mechanism more than actual reality. And if they're around you long enough, if they talk to you long enough, they're going to start to see that. And their ego cannot handle that because they're still in the matrix. They still need a lot of those illusions to feel okay, to function, because without some of the illusions, they would literally question their reality. They would not know who they are. It would literally cause them to have an identity crisis, their own ego death. And some people, they just they can't they can't handle that. Some people are the controllers. Some people are the causes of trauma, and they want to be in control of everything. And they just can't handle that. They can't take accountability, because if they go through their own ego death, they're gonna start to see, that a lot of stuff that they put up with, they didn't need to, so they'll label them trading their dignity as them being the strong one, the resilient one. But the whole time, those are not the words. You just sold your soul. You just sold yourself short, you know? Like a lot of people, they flip words and stuff so they can have a purpose for their pain instead of realizing the actual root causes and stuff. And everything is just all backwards. So they would just argue you down to protect their own ego.